Hello everybody. So I just wanted to do a quick video on my SCX24 and the mods and changes I've done to it. So this started off as a deadbolt, and whenever I wanted to add a hard body to it, I had to adjust the wheelbase. So basically it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. I had to make quite a bit of changes because the body that I wanted to go with was actually a drop bed Chevy Silverado. And so first of all, this thing has a longer wheelbase, like I said, than the deadbolt. And as I mentioned, it has the drop bed. So this means two things. One, that uh, the back the back has to be flat, right? I can't have a the shock mounts because those were too high. I had to cut them down. I actually had to bring down the shock to the chassis itself so I could have a nice flatbed. Since you don't have the cantilever options for these yet, this is kind of what I had to do. The second thing I had to do was extend the wheelbase. Now again, this wasn't an easy task because I don't know much about the availability of the parts and what sizes they come in, if at all. And I know a lot about the 10 scale, but the 24 scale, I didn't know how to, for example, thread a rod that small. So I was able to go to my hobby shop, and they had some all thread rod that was small enough that I was actually able to cut. You could see that I made a cut on the links, on the medium sized links, and I basically drilled a hole through them, and I was able to put my all thread rod right into there, so that this is going to be very strong, very sturdy. It's not going to give me any problems whatsoever. And so I was able to get it to the length that I wanted to. That's what I did. So I basically used the stock link as a set of rod ends and just kind of bound them together with the all thread. Now it actually works really well. The other things that I did was more of a bonus. So I wanted an interior with this, but it's going to be impossible, as you can see. The ESC takes up quite a bit of room. So what I was able to do was actually bring the ESC down a little bit. I cut off the mount that it came on. I cut off the actual little bracket deals that attach to the chassis. I cut them and re-drilled them, and actually was able to bring the ESC down lower. And the reason I did this was mostly for low center of gravity, because I mean, even though it's a small truck, every little change that you do to it is either going to affect it in a positive way or in a negative way when you crawl with it. So by bringing down the ESC, I actually gained some center of gravity. And again, and another thing I did was to move my battery tray to the front, mostly because originally it sits in the back, and if I'm going to have a drop bed, I can't have the battery sitting in the back because it would be sandwiched between the body, and it would bring my body up too high. So I actually was able to bring my battery tray to the front. What I did is I used these these ties, and that's what I'm using to mount my battery tray to the front, and everything works really well. Now, generally, whether you're dealing with a 24 scale or a 10 scale, you want it to be a lot like 1-1. The nature of a 1-1 vehicle is that your engine, your transmission, and all the weight, most of the weight's up front. The same thing applies to a 24 scale or even a 10 scale. So this actually will help you crawl better. And I'm gonna eventually need to add some weight to the back, because when you're at a really tight slope like so, your truck's gonna wanna fall. Nothing holding it to the rock. There's no weight in the back helping it to stay. So you're going to lose your balance if you don't have the right amount of weight. You still have to have some weight in the back. But generally, this is exactly where I want it to be. I have brass knuckles now. And anyways, I just wanted to share my changes. This has been quite an adventure. I thought that getting SCX24 and just buying a model scale body would be really easy to attach to it, but it has not been easy at all. But thankfully, I do have experience with the 10 scale, and so I was able to use a lot of that with to facilitate this body going on there. Now, I haven't exactly decided how I'm going to mount the body. I do have a couple of ideas that I used in the 10 scale world, and they're going to work perfectly. It's just a matter of before I even worry about the mounting, I want to worry about getting this body painted. I want to get the grill. I want to get the chrome stripped out of the grill and make it a little bit more realistic. So I still have quite a ways to go. However, I think the mechanics of it are pretty much down. Now I'm just waiting for a longer drive shaft that's going to come in the mail. That's going to give me more coverage here, because one thing I forgot to mention was that when I first extended the wheelbase in the front, the attachment here was actually too short. And so I brainstormed overnight and tried to figure out what I could do to extend this guy here, the tube. But I couldn't figure it out. So what I did is I actually swapped out the rear mount to the front, because it turns out that the rear mount is a little bit longer, because you can see the drive shaft in the back is much longer than the one in the front. Now this isn't a stock drive line either. The stock one was actually much shorter and it wouldn't have worked, so I went with the medium-sized one. Excuse me. And so it worked really well. I used a medium for the front, and I swapped over the mounts from the back to the front, and it gets me just enough grab that I can test it and play with it for now. But I know that really soon is probably going to give up, because that only goes in about maybe a quarter of an inch. And you can tell right there that it wants to bend or fold even, because there's just not enough grab from the drive link itself. So once those come in, I'm going to put a longer shaft on there. So that's something that you may want to keep in mind when you're just simply wanting to swap out your old Lexan body to a mold injected model body like this. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. Feel free to ask any questions. Have a good one.